Boruto changed the whole lore of Kaguya Otsutsuki, which was established in Naruto, from unveiling the existence of a long-lost partner to changing the mechanics behind how the god trees work. But in the middle of this inevitable change to expand the story, a massive detail often gets overlooked by most fans, something that could play an important role towards the endgame of the story. I'm talking about the Otsutsuki clan and their untold myths and urban legends. Now the problem is that there are just a handful of hints for us to deduce the main agenda of these creatures, their backstories, how they came into being, their exploitative relationship with other beings, and their journey to godhood. But after taking reference from some real-life lores and legends which may have inspired the creation of this clan, I was able to come up with the hypothetical backstory of the Otsutsuki, which answers a lot of questions about them. So let's begin with the Big Bang Theory. So the whole idea behind the first Otsutsuki comes from the extra panel which was revealed in Boruto Volume 1. I have referenced it in many of my previous videos, but today we will dive deep to decipher the truth, which is hiding within its text. The panel explained the broken ability that Ida used in chapter 79. We got to know a lot about the power of omnipotence, something that wasn't obvious when Ida used it, but was definitely hinted by Momoshiki when he referred to this power as Shinjutsu of Shinjutsu. So this godly ability was used to create the current Naruto universe, as well as its infinite possibilities. This only explains how diabolical and overly broken this ability is, but that's not what this video is about. The real deal lies within the first sentence of this panel, which single-handedly explains the whole omniverse of Boruto and what it's all about. Kaguya Otsutsuki used to be a god in a universe which doesn't exist anymore. At first it appeared to be either a typo as a result of mistranslation, since Kami means god and Otsutsuki are basically Otsutsuki, so it could be a reference to some other Otsutsuki god who's not mentioned by name. But the problem emerges when you read the sentence with that context in mind. An Otsutsuki god was a god in another universe which doesn't exist anymore. As you can see, it doesn't make any grammatical sense. So to keep things simple and not too complex, let's consider this entity to be Kaguya Otsutsuki and not Shibai as assumed by many. He could be a totally different being who's responsible for creating the current world. Now this is where things get interesting. Dragon Ball seems to have a really huge influence on Boruto as a series, and I think the concept of multiple gods and multiverse in True Blue Vortex has also been derived from there. Just like how every universe has their separate god of destruction in Dragon Ball Super, we could get to see a more refined and better concept in Boruto, and here is why I believe so. There are two types of Otsutsuki gods in the Narutoverse. One who belong to a different universe, which for some reasons has been erased, just like Beerus from Dragon Ball Super. The other simply worked hard to achieve the stature of godhood by consuming countless planets over thousands of years. The only example right now is Shibai Otsutsuki, just like how in Dragon Ball Super, Goku unlocks divine forms like Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Blue, and Ultra Instinct. But that doesn't make him a god just like Beerus. The case of Boruto may or may not be similar, and here is why I think so. This special panel clearly states that Kaguya Otsutsuki's omnipotence was so powerful that he used it to create the universe and everything within. What's even crazier is that his manifestation of this universe also led to the creation of the infinite possibilities, meaning that omnipotence works on precise and powerful calculations. However, when we look back at Shibai Otsutsuki, there isn't any mention of him creating new worlds or wiping out a universe through his omnipotence. The only mention of an Otsutsuki god using this ability comes from Momoshiki, and guess what they did with this power? Well, they simply changed the memories of humanity, something similar to what Ida did in chapter 79. While it can be assumed that Shibai using this power in the past will get revealed to us in the future, but the fact that only a fraction of what true omnipotence can do was revealed in the story is a bit suspicious. So what if the Otsutsuki gods who belong to the universe which was mentioned in this panel have a stronger version of omnipotence? It makes sense when you think about how even the Otsutsuki who unlocked this power would have a hard time mastering it. There could be exceptions indeed, similar to how Goku triggered Mastered Ultra Instinct, something that no god of destruction was able to pull off. So Shibai or some other Otsutsuki may be an exception if they somehow master this power, but I believe the gods from the original universe, such as Kami, had perfected this divine power, and this is where the multiverse theory begins. As we know, Kami belonged to a universe which doesn't exist anymore, and he somehow had the powers to create the current universe. So what if that universe got wiped out by some supreme entity, or let's say through a Ragnarok type of event? For those unfamiliar with Ragnarok, it is the prophesied end of the world mentioned in the Norse mythology, a catastrophic event that brings about the destruction of the gods, giants, and the cosmos itself, only for the world to be restored and reborn. The term Ragnarok is often translated as the doom of the gods or the twilight of the gods. Now coming back to this panel, it says Kami was a god who belonged to a universe which doesn't exist anymore. So what if this universe was like a realm of gods where multiple such beings existed, but then a Ragnarok type of situation erupted, which led to all the remaining gods create their own unique worlds. This includes the one in which Naruto and Otsutsukis like Kaguya were born, with Kami Otsutsuki being the creator. And if that's the case, then there must be other universes as well, with different Otsutsuki gods being their guardians. Judging by the whole Dragon Ball influence on the story, I won't be surprised if we get to see a multiversal fight between the strongest prodigies of all the worlds, with Boruto representing his universe to defeat the otherworldly tyrants. Well, even though this might not happen, but at least this panel hints at the existence of multiple universes as well as their unique deities. The reason I compare this multiverse creation of Boruto to the Big Bang has something to do with the in real life theory, which says everything was once a part of a whole. Then the Big Bang happened and the universe was created. However, in the story of Kishimoto, some Ragnarok type of event could have erased the original universe, persuading all the deities to create their own worlds. Now when we talk about backstories, there is one entity whose lore could break the entire internet, and I will prove that in a few minutes. It's none other than Shibai Otsutsuki, who was likely the first Otsutsuki being to become a god just like Kami Otsutsuki. His dedication to reaching godhood seems to have laid a blueprint for all the Otsutsukis to follow, which is why they all strive so hard for thousands of years to evolve themselves. He could be the very first Otsutsuki to become a god, and this is where things take an even more interesting turn. Considering Shibai experienced everything from the thrill of being an Otsutsuki god to unlocking powers that no other being in the universe had ever achieved, then why in the world did he leave his mortal remains behind, that too on a planet like Earth, just to transfer his consciousness into a higher dimension? Some of you could argue that Jigen or Ishiki may have brought their remains with him, but still the Occam's razor tells us that Shibai left his body on the planet by himself. All the hints connecting Boruto and the deity also indicate the same, which brings us to one solid conclusion. Shibai must have left his body to manifest a certain type of future into reality. It could be something which would have been impossible if he hadn't left his body behind, which can also get explained through the concept of singularities, as Kashin explained them as entities who have the power to change fate. Based on their knowledge of the forthcoming, Shibai must have been no exception. After all, he was an Otsutsuki god. But the Shinjutsu of Shinjutsus has tears attached, meaning that Shibai's omnipotence might not be as potent as the one used by Kami to create the present universe. So what I think is that he first came up with the cosmic plan, which was almost impossible in every possible future, but using the power of prescience multiple times to figure the only way out, he came up with the solution of abandoning his mortal body behind, only to orchestrate the future which wouldn't have happened otherwise. And there are several hints of the possibilities scattered throughout the story, like Boruto awakening the Jogan, the Star of Hope, Amado referring to Otsutsuki powers as hope, Akebi's death correlating to Boruto's birth, and so on. Even in chapter 13, Jura said some higher power is helping Boruto through divine intervention. So be honest with me, how many times have you thought about the intention of Shibai Otsutsuki? Like if he's actually an omnipotent or even semi-omnipotent deity who could destroy and create worlds, or at least change reality altogether, what in the world would he need Boruto for? Well, this is again where the multiverse theory kicks in. Remember how Urashiki identified the eye of Boruto and called it troublesome? The way he was surprised to see the Jogan only means that either he had seen it somewhere before, or it's a well-documented element of the Otsutsuki lore, probably the pinnacle of their power. And since Urashiki knew about it, what if there are only a few Otsutsukis in the universe who have unlocked this eye? With Boruto being an exceptional case, since he had it before turning into an Otsutsuki. The fact that Shibai had the power of prescience makes it possible for him already seeing the point where Boruto evolves, which may be why he granted him this eye early to amplify his role as an Otsutsuki in the future. I even think the Jogan could be a divine marker given by Shibai Otsutsuki to the individuals that he finds worthy of fighting multiversal threats. So if an Otsutsuki god ever comes from another universe to cause trouble, Boruto could join the war with more Jogan wielders, explaining the unique significance of this eye. This may be why Shibai decided to ascend to a higher realm. He wanted to create a team of strong fighters, similar to what happened in the Tournament of Power in Dragon Ball Super. As for our final backstory for today, we will be looking at the Forgotten Pioneers, the missing Otsutsuki duo who emerged as a result of Kishimoto's Ten Tails retcon. In Boruto chapter 35, Sasuke stumbles upon something odd in the Ten Tails dimension, a set of stone panels showing the Otsutsuki who visited Earth. 4 of them are clear: Kaguya, Ishiki, Momoshiki, and Kinshiki. Otsutsuki, but the final two remain a mystery since they are broken, scratched out completely, and that might not be an accident. According to the Boruto lore, Otsutsuki typically travel in pairs to cultivate planets, planting a tentacle seedling that consumes one partner to grow into a divine tree, producing a chakra fruit for the survivor. However, what if the missing Otsutsuki rejected this cycle? Imagine they arrived on Earth a millennia before Kaguya and Ishiki, and upon discovering the vibrant ecosystem as well as the nascent human civilizations, they could have grown attached to it, much like what Kaguya did later on. So instead of sacrificing one of themselves, they experimented with the tentacles, allowing it to feed on Earth's natural energy and the blood of warring humans rather than an Otsutsuki body. This unorthodox method produced a weaker premature chakra fruit, which they left behind, perhaps intending to protect the planet from further Otsutsuki exploitation. The clan must have then sent Kaguya and Ishiki for investigation, but the missing duo must have erased all their traces from the planet, explaining their destroyed Otsutsuki panels. A huge hint to support this comes from the original Naruto lore, where the divine tree is depicted as already present on Earth, growing from bloodshed before Kaguya's arrival. It's later clarified that a tentacle requires an Otsutsuki sacrifice to become a divine tree, yet Kaguya found the fruit without sacrificing herself or Ishiki. This contradiction supports the idea that missing Otsutsuki created the tree through unconventional means. Now here's another theory which explains how Kaguya was able to eat the chakra fruit without triggering the end of the world. Kaguya and Ishiki came to Earth as a team to grow a chakra fruit, with one of them meant to be sacrificed to the tentacles to drain the planet's energy. Ishiki was stronger, so obviously Kaguya was the one supposed to die, but she betrayed him, attacking and cutting him in half, as shown in chapter 38. This theory says that Kaguya took Ishiki's lower half, the same part that she chopped off, and fed it to the tentacles instead of sacrificing herself. Since it was only half of him, it wasn't a full sacrifice, so the tentacles made a weaker chakra fruit that did not suck up all of Earth's energy. Ishiki's upper half lived on, hiding in Jigen, but his missing lower half is a mystery that the authors did not explain. So Kaguya, wanting power fast, could have used that half to grow a divine tree to get a fruit. Normally, a full Otsutsuki sacrifice would completely wipe out a planet's chakra, leaving it fully dead. But just because Ishiki's half wasn't enough, the fruit only took some of Earth's energy, preventing a complete annihilation of the planet. So that's it for today. If you are interested in more such backstories, make sure to watch these videos right now. I will see you next time.